Welcome to the Chronic Health Collective, where we empower you to transform your life. We've gathered the best coaches and experts to bring you insights that will elevate your physical, mental, and spiritual well being. Whether you're looking to boost your energy, heal relationships, or just live a more productive, balanced life, we are here to guide you every step of the way. I'm excited to announce that we have a brand new coach, Jessica, to just join our CHC team. So, Jessica is a trauma recovery and transformation coach, podcast speaker, and author. She is also the director of behavioral and mental health, serving 100 campuses and 25,000 students in a Texas charter school, and the founder of Vibrant Voice, coaching, consulting, and counseling. She is passionate about helping others find emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical health by rediscovering their true identity. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
It's so great to have you here. So, Jessica, since you are new, why don't you tell our viewers about what you do and just how you got into it?
Yeah. So, we mentioned, I'm a trauma recovery and transformation coach. I actually started on it through the education path, being in as a school teacher, and then really working into counseling because kids, I saw so many of them needed emotional and mental health support, overcoming things to be able to learn well. And as I began down that path, I realized, okay, this isn't just traditional overcoming things, but we have more and more people that have encountered traumas. And what I learned is that trauma is not just a big event that happens to you, but it actually can be a culmination of a whole bunch of little things that happen to you. And it's an injury that we encounter in our nervous system. And everybody can sustain an injury from a different thing, or we can all go through the same thing together. And some of us are not injured and some of us are. And so to me, I became really passionate about finding healing. I think that's so powerful because when we're injured, there's an opportunity to heal, which is a much different approach than some clinicians take. And so that began my journey to say, okay, how can I help people really transform how they're living and recover from these injuries that they've sustained to their nervous system, which has impacted their spirit, their soul, their mind, will, emotions, their intellect, and their whole body.
Wow, that's amazing. I like how you say that it is an injury. A lot of people don't see it that way. They don't. They kind of just brush it off. Especially people my age, the boomers, the Gen X's. We just see suck it up and keep moving, right? But
Yes.
we don't think about it. It's actually a lot deeper than that.
Yeah. And it impacts so much of our lives, and we don't realize we're walking like the quote. There's a great quote by C.S. Lewis, and it says, it's easy to recognize a toothache than it is to recognize a heartbreak, and it's easier to kind of deal with physical pain in our body than it is to recognize and work through mental pain. And the trauma injury causes so much mental pain and pain in our spirit and what we think and feel and believe, and it doesn't look the same, so we don't pursue healing in it as fast.
It's interesting, interesting. So last couple years, I've been noticing around this time that I'm getting emails asking me if I want to opt out of Mother's Day promotions. I subscribe to a lot of retail, a lot of they send me stuff. You want to buy this, but they always ask me I want to opt out of Mother's Day email, and what is the reason for that?
Mother's Day is like one of the most recognized familial holidays that there is. There's, I think, over 139 billion cards that are sold. It's a big holiday. But there's become more and more awareness about the fact that it is really a trauma trigger for a lot of people. And what I mean by that is, while it's the most celebrated because of our connection to motherhood, there's also a lot of pain attached to it. And so we're becoming more and more inclusive of this idea of maybe we shouldn't engage in people's emotional pain by our marketing and promos. So that can look like there's a huge rise in the awareness of infertility. So Mother's Day is one of those things where I don't get to hold the child in my arm that I desperately desire, or maybe I'm in an infertility journey and I just lost the baby that I thought I was going to be holding in my arms. And then there is women and men who have both just lost their mother between, the year to year holiday. And so this is the first day they don't get to honor. They can't call their mom. And, having that connection for most people is like, now I don't have it. And it's a grief trigger for all of the things that we're losing out on. I think that there are a portion of the people that have great relationships with their mom, but it's also a lot of a holiday that has a lot of, like, if you had a disorganized or chaotic relationship with a mother figure, it can be a really painful one if you grew up in foster care, or maybe you were adopted, or there was abuse involved, all of those things. And so this one day has a lot of emotional energy tied to it. We can actually track back to people's productivity during this time and how it takes a significant dip slightly before Mother's Day and just after, because they're navigating that emotional awareness that's all of a sudden come up. And they may not tie it to Mother's Day, but the programs I've been in, we see a dip in their productivity, their emotional functioning, and a whole bunch of things that are connected to us living and moving and breathing in what we have in life.
Well, I mean, I never thought of how deep the impact can be. And it's actually amazing that you're so aware of it. Because, like, I don't have a good relationship with my daughter. We are very polite to each other, but we never really speak about anything deep inside us, right? So,
Yeah.
how does the relationship or someone's relationship with their own mother affects how they deal with the mother stage trauma?
Yeah. So, our we get this idea of nurture and connectedness from our relationship with our mom, right? And so when we come up on a holiday, there's this idea that we have this expectation, right, of how our moms maybe should have been for us, or even what we, if we desire motherhood, what our life was going to look like in the area of like infertility. I thought I was going to be a mom by now, and I'm not. And anytime our reality is different than our expectations, that gap in the middle is a lot of intense emotions. And so it's really important to be aware of, am I feeling intense emotions all of a sudden? And I think that's the first step in this piece is having an awareness of emotions. So when I'm working with clients or in different things and we're getting to this season, I always prep, especially my female clients. I tend to see it a lot more. Hey, we're coming up on Mother's Day. You need to be aware of what feelings you're having, and all of a sudden your inability to stay focused, to be productive, to get things done, or all of a sudden feeling very tense and angsty, because that is actually your the awareness of the fact that we're having this huge celebration, and your relationship with mother or motherhood has some stuff to work out in it. There's some tension or there's some healing that needs to occur. And so even if you have not been in a practice of having a Mother's Day celebration, your nervous system and your body still recognizes that this maybe is a should. I should be celebrating my mom and I can't. Or I should be having a child to hold in my arms and I can't. And that can produce a lot of angst in people. So kind of having that awareness and then paying attention to what are the things that I'm thinking about this awareness. Like, am I making myself think lowly of myself or bad of myself? Because when we have thoughts partnered with feelings, that's when we act on things, and it begins to anchor in these belief systems. Well, maybe I don't deserve to be a mom, or maybe I don't deserve to have a good mom. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I need to fix something. And so it lends us to having all these further action steps then, which keep us stuck in a pattern that we keep repeating over and over and over again.
Which brings me to my next question. Is there a difference in how men and women handles the grief of, I guess, motherhood?
Yes, I think that there is. Excuse me just a second.
I know the
Um,
allergies is running around here too.
I'm sorry, I like those little stuff in the air. Took up, but I men receive nurture differently. Men actually can get stuck in what we call little boy energy. And so, so not to, belittle them, but women can become more defensive sometimes or own personally their connection to their mom. But men, and having not received that energy, especially if they're in a partnership already, can turn into the little boy in the relationship. Maybe they're seeking more comfort, or they're doing things to look for approval in a different sort of way. Sometimes, if they are in a certain type of relationship, they might become dismissive, almost like aggressive about it because they're all of a sudden like, I don't need that, and so they actually push down those feelings of potential grief and loss. But it is connected to that piece of things. Now, if their mother is gone and they're with a partner, oftentimes that can become a point of tension because they're making a bigger deal about the emotional hole that they feel, even though they have a partner that they may have a child with and all that stuff. So it becomes this like tension point, like, well, I can't celebrate my mom and you can. So there's a lot of different storylines and belief systems we tell ourselves about it. There's also cultural significance to this holiday too, because every culture recognizes the role of motherhood so differently. And in some cultures, you have big families and generational celebrations or recognitions of it, and a lot of defensive posture from the men, like "don't mess with mom" kind of thing, and other ones not so much. Interestingly enough, when they look at like the amount of cards and things that have gone out from a prison, Mother's Day cards are the biggest male holiday, like mailing cards to their moms come out of the prison system than any other holiday ever in the
Ooh.
history of the year. So even when we experience these disruptive times in our lives and these places where we have significant lows, there's still an acknowledgement of who mom is or was for us.
So, is there a difference whether how a person deals with the grief? Is there a difference as to where they are in life? Like, as suppose, I guess I'm looking at a person in jail is in a different place than a person that is extremely successful. Is there a
Yeah.
difference in how they would deal with the grief?
Honestly, I don't think it has anything to do with the position of where you're at in life. I think it has more to do with what you were given permission to do as a child. And so, if you grew up in a home or in a culture that allowed you to recognize emotions and took time to acknowledge that this is something that is a loss, then you would tend to give yourself more permission to experience the pain of that or allow yourself to cry or experience sadness. But there's a lot of cultures and a lot of, especially you mentioned like boomers and Gen Xers, this is not a time to cry about it, right? In fact, it becomes almost this storyline where people are like, well, I wasn't this, or I didn't have this happen to me. So they become dismissive of the fact that there is pain attached to it because they're like, well, I wasn't abused by my mom, or my mom did the best she could. And what I like to say about that is like you can have both and in your storyline. Your mom could have done the best that she did for the circumstances you were in. Maybe she was a single mom and she worked two jobs or multiple jobs and you didn't get a lot of time with her. And also you can still have missed out on that nurture component from her. And so there's still a loss attached to that. Even if she's physically around, you might experience an emotional loss by not having that nurture component as part of your relationship. And so then it's difficult to achieve and connect with those places where you need to feel love and nurture. And one of the most significant places that shows up is in your relationship with money, because
Oh,
money is what we perceive as something that provides us nurture or comfort, helps meet our needs. And so a lot of times people have trauma around their money, and that's connected back to their mom.
that's very interesting. I think we need to go deep into that one. But Jessica, I'm so glad you're here. We're going to take a break first, and we come back, we'll go deep into this money and relationship subject. We'll
Sounds
be right
good.
back.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science, at longevity, at exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take control of your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
Are you struggling to communicate effectively or lead with clarity? At Bambushu Coaching, Vince, a certified peace specialist and brain health trainer, offers solutions tailored to your needs. Whether it's developing better leadership skills, improving communication, or fostering peace in stressful environments, Vince has the tools to help you thrive. Through personalized coaching and training, Vince helps you tap into your strengths, reduce stress, and communicate with confidence. The result: stronger leadership, clearer communication, and more peaceful, productive environments. Ready to lead with clarity and peace? Connect with Vince at Bambushu Coaching today.
Ever feel like you're doing it all, but doing it alone? Running your business, supporting your family, trying to stay grounded while juggling everything. You're not the only one. You deserve a space where you can just exhale. A room where you don't have to prove anything. Because everyone already gets it. Where conversations go beyond small talk. Where stories are shared, not judged. Where new connections feel like old friends. This is that space. This is that room. This is that moment. Come refill your cup. Be seen. Be celebrated. Because when women come together, powerful things happen. Let's grow, rise, and lead together. Join us on May 17th, Women of the World Hawaii pop-up event in Honolulu. Hope to see you.
Welcome back to Chronic Health Collective. So today we have Jessica with us. Jessica is our brand new coach in trauma recovery and transformation. So Jessica, before the break, we were talking about our relationship with money and our relationship with our mother or motherhood. Can you give us an example? I'm not really seeing the connection here.
Yeah. So here's the thing is first of all, we learn our money story oftentimes from our mom, because our core issue in connected with our mom is the ability for moms to nurture. And very early on, we receive our needs that are met by our mom. Our needs for food, clothing, provision, and shelter. And so because mom is connected a lot of times with the spending or taking care of those needs, we also learn over time as we grow that we need money to do those things. We need money to purchase food. We need money for shelter, for clothing, for all the things. But we pattern that is, how did we feel nurtured from our mom? Was mom always busy? Was she available to us? Did she take care of us? Was it a good relationship, a good exchange? And so that's how we often start our relationship with money. But if we saw patterns with our mom, like the classic mom who buys a bunch of stuff and then hides the bags in the closet and is like, that's been there for weeks. You know what we learned is that it's not safe to spend money on something that we like or desire, and that we have to hide that thing and tell a lie about it in order to actually feel safe with it. And so a lot of people will make purchases and hide them or pretend they're not there, and then it creates this relationship angst. We also learn sometimes where we have to make exchanges or barters with things, and we don't have necessarily good skills in place. A lot of times moms go do the grocery shopping and they'll take kids along, and kids might ask, I don't know if you've ever been with anybody who's taken a child grocery shopping. That phrase, a kid in the candy store, everything is bright and shiny and they want all of it. Well, a lot of times what moms will say is, we can't afford that. And it gives the tagline that there is lack there. There's not enough for us to have that. When instead, a better suggestion is, we're not going to invest our money on that right now. See, there's a totally different concept between we can't afford it versus we're choosing not to invest in it. Because I can't afford it implies that there's lack and sometimes even poverty, and it's not available to us even if we wanted it. When we say we're choosing not to invest in it, we recognize that while it's just a switch in wording, it anchors in a completely different concept, that we have the ability to decide where we want our money to go. And so as we get older, this idea that money is there to meet our needs, even though it's really not, it's the concept of energy around money, that it is something, and people that have access to more or believe that there's always more available to them tend to be people who have healed the mother wound or didn't have one to begin with, because they felt like what they needed, love, care, nurture, support, and emotional availability, was always available to them.
That is interesting. I'm just using myself as an example. I did get a lot of the we couldn't afford it kind of saying from my mother. And that actually confused me a lot, because I thought my dad makes pretty good money.
Mm-hmm.
But then they sent two of my older sisters to college overseas. So I think that's where the money went.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still confusing to me. How come they're able to spend some things, on my sisters and not on me, right?
Yeah, it brings this whole issue in of like my identity, worth, and value. And we start attaching value to things that shouldn't have a monetary value attached to them. But it's because we have this intrinsic desire and instinct in us that our parents are automatically going to provide for us. And a child up until 10 or 11 is very what we call concrete thinking. They're very black and white. And so when you say we can't afford that, they literally believe there is not a way for us to access this. As opposed to when you say we choose not to invest in this, they're like, oh, well, there might be a way. We're just choosing not to do it, right? And we might choose not to invest in it because it's like the extra stuff, or it's the maybe unhealthy foods, right? That have all the stuff in it. And we're going to buy a different version of it that's healthier for our family. But we're saying, we can't afford it. And what that instills in us is we're not even valuable enough to invest in ourselves. So a lot of people in adulthood are now undoing some of those thought processes and rewriting that money story. The other thing is, it's interesting, is gasoline prices. And so this is a common area where trauma occurs. And I often ask people like, hey, do you ever remember your mom or dad saying like, oh, gas is so expensive, or we're going to drive across town because it's this many cents cheaper over there, things like that. That actually can trigger a nervous system trauma, because all of a sudden you're worried about like, are we going to be able to get gas? And what does this mean if we can't? And so now you find yourself scrolling through the app to save like 3 cents. But the truth is if that is not an injury to your nervous system and your ability to feel cared for and safe and nurtured, the wealthy and the people that have gone through all of the healing related to the traumas around these things, they just go buy gas. They don't worry about if it's 10 cents cheaper across town, because they have nervous system regulation that I have the ability to have my needs met. I've rewritten my money story, and that injury is not still impacting me. You know how like physically people will say, if they have had a bone injury or something, they'll say, oh, a storm's brewing. I can feel it in my knee, or, the money story can actually impact us the same way, where we find ourselves changing our habits or our actions out of that nervous system dysregulation, such as trying to figure out which gas station we're going to go to save the proverbial 10 cents a gallon.
That is interesting. I feel like a lot of people may not know that they were injured. Like there are a lot of people that's like looking for the gas price, the best gas price, but they didn't actually know that it was an injury that caused by,
Yeah.
by parents, right? How would someone actually be able to identify themselves as someone that has been traumatized?
Here's what I'll say is if you can make a decision in safety, that's a big thing in safety, without feeling like you have to do it a different way in order to make it work. So when we're in a nervous system dysregulation or a traumatic state, things don't feel safe emotionally, physically, mentally, monetarily, if you want to say that. And so if you find yourself, what is driving the need for you to look for the gas price across town? Because a trauma response, if you're in that much of a survival mode, you are living in a trauma response. Why are you making that choice? And some people would come back and say, well, it's a financially sound decision. And it's like, and my response back to them, is it a financially sound decision? Or are you actually re-traumatizing yourself? What is the story you're telling yourself? Because if you believe in this idea that there's abundance, there's more than enough, right? There's the ability for us to heal our spirit, soul, and body, then there's an opportunity for that 3 cents a gallon, 5 cents a gallon to come back to you in some other way, shape, or form. So I always ask people, if you don't know, you want to look for safety. Why am I doing this? What's driving me to make a change or do something different? And so those are subtleties when you think about, I say, if you go up to if you're in the grocery store and you go to swipe your card and your heart is pounding, that's a good sign that you're not regulated about buying groceries. Now, I get it. This is kind of the little joke sort of I use, a cart of groceries used to be $195 and now it's $650, right? Because of cost change. But my point is if you are literally making decisions and you feel this nervousness about you, that's a good chance that you're not feeling safe in your body, which means that at some point in time, you received a message that this concept wasn't safe. That could be about money. It could be about groceries. It could be about your relationship with your mom. It could be about the situation. We started off talking about holidays and stuff like that. There's a lot of different areas in life that you can even have a learning trauma. So maybe your mom had a lot to say about how you got good grades in school, or your sibling got good grades and you got terrible grades. So
Right.
you can actually have a learning trauma too. So there's all these different things as stories we have learned where we didn't feel safe. And we didn't feel safe over a period of time. And our nervous system didn't have time to process the thoughts that we had about it, the emotions that we felt about it, which ultimately led to the story that we began telling ourselves about who we are and what's available to us. I see that a lot with women who are struggling with infertility. It's like their body's not working. And so this idea of like, I should have been able to become a mom right now, and my body isn't working. I'm broken. And so there's not just the pain of loss and the pain of missing out. It's a trauma that they sustain in their heart and their mind and their body because they're telling themselves that I'm bad or wrong because I'm in this space.
Yeah, because there's always a story that we are telling ourselves, right? And that's always, a lot of times that's based on how you were brought up.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a difference in how a mother can break you as opposed to how a father can break you?
Well, yeah. So the thing about a father wound, the difference is that the mother wound, the core issue is emotional availability is a real thing for a mother issue, and then nurture. The father wound really speaks to your self-image, your worthiness, your independence, like your ability to go do things. So there's a lot of reels and different things around that say like a mother, when she tells her child, they're beautiful, they accept it. But a father, when he tells the child they're beautiful, it becomes the imprint in their identity. And so many people struggle with their self-confidence, their self-image, their worthiness, because of their connection to or lack of connection of their father. And interestingly enough, conversely, Father's Day is one of the holidays that has the least amount of cards sent. Least. We've almost developed a sense of apathy when it comes to Father's Day because so many people have really disorganized or chaotic stories with their dad. And some of it is because, especially if you're very empathetic and you have learned that you need that emotional connection. Men have been told this story of like, don't cry. Like crying is bad and you're a terrible person because you cry. That sends the message to grief is not okay. And that is in another way that we can be traumatized because we're injured, we're wounded, and we're not allowed to express how we feel about it. And I'm not really sure where that message ever started, but it has been a strong message that has come through the generations, when in reality, we're actually designed to release the crying. We're designed to release that internal stress that needs to come out because we've experienced pain. And by restricting that pain, we're setting ourselves up for other breakdowns in our body, actually physical conditions that can stem from unresolved or unreleased grief.
Wow. You're going very deep, Jessica. So let's back up for a minute. Let's talk about the women that they weren't able to conceive.
Mm-hmm.
How would you turn things around for them? Like, how would you switch their mindset so that they don't basically talk themselves out of whatever it is that they wanted, right?
Yeah. I think recognizing that their identity is not in. So my personal story has a lot of involvement in this. We actually had a 10-year journey with infertility, and this is part of one of the things I actually worked through. And in that space, I learned to work with a lot of other women as well, and recognizing that motherhood is a role that you play. It's not who you are and your identity. See, when I show up every day, or when a woman shows up every day, she still has the ability to be her own authentic self. She still has the ability to show up in the world and make change and create value and leave a legacy. All things that we attribute just to motherhood. She still has the ability to provide care and nurture, to be that sense of support for somebody, whether that person is physically birthed from her body or not. And I think when we began to shift the mind that says, I am not bad or wrong because I am not fulfilling this role in the way that I expected to, we set ourselves up to look at life to say, well, how can I still have that opportunity, if I choose to be loving and nurturing and caring to other people, or even to pets. Some people have taken that role on and say, I may not have ever had physical children of my own, but I have provided love and care and nurture to a pet in a way that I never anticipated. And it literally is my fur baby, But I think recognizing that your worth and value is not tied to any role that you play, whether that's husband, wife, partner, parent, sibling, child, any role that you are in life is not connected to your worth and value, that you have infinite worth and value because of who you are. And I heard a great author say it this way: it's not about your worth. You are essential. It's not about being worthy, because you're an essential person at this point in time, that you are here on this earth to carry out a specific mission that your identity alone is designed for. And I was like, man, that's so powerful. It's a whole different ballgame when you know that who you are and how you show up is essential in life.
I love it. I think that is essentially the whole point, is that you don't have to be something. You are already you, and you're already contributing the way that you can. So I love it, Jessica. That's so amazing. So we're going to take another break. And when we come back, I think we should talk about strategies to how to heal. Is that it?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, let's take a break.
Imagine a life where every day is fueled by energy, vitality, and purpose. where age is just a number and your best years are always ahead. Hi, I'm Andy Nam, certified functional nutrition longevity coach, best-selling author, and international speaker. After reversing my own chronic health struggles, I'm now on a mission to help you live longer, stronger, and of course, to look younger. I combine biohacking, cutting-edge nutrition, and stem cell technology to unlock your body's full potential. So no matter where your starting point is, I'm going to guide you toward a chronically healthy life. Ready to reverse aging and take control of your future? Connect with me today. Your journey to longevity starts here.
Have you ever felt stuck in your marriage, wondering if things will ever get better? Meet Samantha Kawa, the marriage coach who's helping people transform their relationships in ways they never thought possible. Having saved her own marriage twice, Samantha knows the way forward. If you're ready to rebuild trust, reconnect, and create the love you deserve, visit www.thegems.com today, because the first step to transforming your marriage starts with you.
Hi, I'd like to personally invite you incredible women, to an event that's happening on May 17th in Hawaii, Women of the World Networking Event. This isn't just another networking event, it's a space for women, leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals to connect, learn, and grow together. Whether you want to expand your business, step onto the stage as a speaker, or showcase your business and your brand, there's an opportunity for you if you're ready to take your connections to the next level. Join us on May 17th, and I'll see you there.
Welcome back to Chronic Health Collective. So, Jessica, because I saw Vince's promotion, I want to ask you something that just came to my mind.
Sure.
There is a lot of women empowerment going on, for the last decade or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that's contributing to the mom trauma, or is that actually helping with the mom trauma?
There's a huge rise in what I call trauma-informed coaching, which is significantly different than what I do. And I think if the coach that is working, or an individual that is working to empower women, has a trauma-informed approach, they can build or structure their programs, even if they're not a coach. If they have a trauma-informed awareness of what's going on, they can build and structure their programs in a way to empower women to walk through. But there is also this level that when we don't have a trauma understanding, that we can actually bypass people's trauma and cause them to want to dismiss it or diminish it. Like, just power up and do the thing, and you can heal and you can be amazing. And that's all true. However, it is a form of almost like compartmentalizing the trauma that's occurred. And when we compartmentalize and dissociate from our trauma, put it back here, pretend it didn't exist, as in sometimes what Gen Xers and Boomers do, and beyond, right? That will only hold for so long. And what I'm seeing happen is this rise of people like trying to just push through and experience that good feeling that power brings us and that confidence brings us. And they get to a point and their system is like, absolutely not. We're not doing this anymore. And they end up in a shutdown. And so we see a rise in like adrenal fatigue and nervous breakdown. We see it in certain professions where they're quitting their profession. They think something's wrong with them. And so vicarious trauma is what a lot of people call it, like a secondary experience of the trauma. And so it's not bad or wrong. I think there's beauty in it, but I also think that you cannot bypass healing something that was really something that really impacted your life, which kind of lends itself to the idea you mentioned before about strategies. One of the first strategies that I actually talk to people about is regulating your nervous system. And so if you find yourself, when it comes to whatever the concept that traumatized you, say motherhood, and you find yourself coming up against Mother's Day every year, it's a reoccurring holiday, and you can't go to stores because you see Mother's Day cards, you avoid going to restaurants because there's Mother's Day brunches, you hide your phone so you don't get any text messages from anybody about Mother's Day, you stay off social media because you don't want to see posts. Those are trauma responses. And until you address the emotional needs that come with that and regulate your own nervous system and body, you are going to continue to experience that no matter how many empowerment conferences you attend or how much you do, right? So the thing with trauma is it has to be healed in your body in a safe setting. And when we're experiencing trauma, we've received a lot of signals that we're not safe, which is oftentimes why it's tied back to the mother concept, because the mother provides that nurture and emotional safety for us. So learning to regulate your body. One of the strategies I use for that is breathing. A short breath in and a long breath out. And repeating that a couple times over and over actually tells your brain that you're safe, because your brain has a response in a trauma response that you're not safe physically. It says you're in a threatening situation or a dangerous one. So it's trying to run to get away, right? Well, you can't take a short breath in and a long breath out if you're running to get away from something.
Sure.
Right. So we have to tell your brain something different. And then before we address the thoughts or anything, because the other part that happens in that is our brain is sending signals to our body that are bypassing this part of our brain called our prefrontal cortex. And so when we're bypassing that, that's our logic center of our brain that says, no, you're fine. There's nothing chasing you. You're safe. You're cared for, right? So by taking those breaths, short in, long out, it slows our system down enough to get back to accessing that part of our brain. And our brain's like, of course we're safe. There's nothing going on. That's because there's a trauma there that needs healed. So self-regulation is really important. If you find yourself avoiding people, places, and things because it's uncomfortable, that's a trauma response. So regulating yourself is the first part, and then giving your brain new information is another part.
That makes sense. We should always, even if without the trauma, I feel like we should actually do that anyways, just because it actually relaxes you, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, how would you recommend someone to rewrite the story? Because we talk about how your story is affecting you, right? How would you recommend someone to actually recognize they're writing the wrong story in the first place and then rewrite a new story for themselves?
Yeah, I say look at so if you're sitting down with yourself, and if you have a difficulty doing this by yourself, find somebody that can maybe guide you through the questions, right? Because I have some friends that are like, I cannot do that without help, and that's okay. But I look at what am I thinking, feeling, and believing about this thing. Okay, so let's take the idea of I want to be a mom and I can't, right? Because my body's not working or it's just not the right time or whatever. So what am I thinking, feeling, and believing about myself because I'm not a mom yet? And that is where you kind of write down that whole piece, because that's your story that you're telling yourself. And then looking at, okay, well, what do I want to think and feel and believe about this? And it starts with you looking at the converse belief system. And so if we believe that we're not good because we're not a mom, our brain will actually find evidence of that looking all around us. It looks for things to anchor in belief systems we hold. It suggests a lot of thoughts, and then we have a lot of feelings about it, right? So we start with the opposite belief first. Okay, I'm a good person even if I'm not a mom. And then I want you to sit down, and so you write that out. What is the new belief? Completely converse or opposite of what you believe now. I'm a good person even if I'm not a mom. And then ask yourself, where in my life do I have evidence to support this idea? So you start to look, where do you have evidence that you've maybe done something well, or you're a good friend, or you're happy, or you have learned to listen really well, or you're loyal, or you're kind, like those character traits that are not defined by your role. And you start to write them out. And then you ask yourself, what do I want to feel about who I am and how I show up in the world? And you just literally write a new story, just literally write it down, and you start to read that over yourself. I encourage you to read it every day. But even if you can't read the story every day, simply telling yourself that new belief system and letting yourself sit for a minute or two to think about, where is that happening in my life, or has it already happened? Your brain begins to redirect itself to this new belief system. And that's how we rewrite the story. We literally rewrite the pathways in our brain.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That's actually very amazing. So one more question. They always say that time heals all. Does it actually work with grieving? Like, do you feel like with
Well,
every year your grief is eventually going to go away?
time doesn't heal anything. Time will pass. Wounds. Here's what I say. Imagine that you're kind of like a jar, and you have a grief loss. Say you have lost your mom. When that first happens, that grief is so big, it takes up the whole jar, right? Time is going to pass. And if you choose to do nothing about it, that grief is going to feel just as big. And they've actually named disorders after it now, prolonged grief disorder and things. However, if you make a choice to move forward and do activities, which they say is one of the best things to start doing is in a grief journey, is start to make steps to move forward in routines and processes and normal activities of life the best that you can, but also being intentional to have a support system around you for when things get difficult in time and hard. What can happen is the amount of grief actually doesn't change, but the container, the description of who we are, actually grows and expands. So grief doesn't always feel as big as it once did because who we are has grown or changed, and so that's kind of like this idea of like time heals all wounds. No, time doesn't heal anything because people can be stuck. However, it's us making a choice. Now, we can choose to say over time, well, it is what it is. And this is just the way life is, right? When we experience, especially if we experienced a death loss of our mom, people just die. Like we have a birth date and a death date, and that's how we live life, right? And I will say to those people, if you dismiss that too much, there will come a point in time where maybe not this incident, but some incident will emotionally shut you down because your system is designed to release those emotions. And so even if you don't want to be super crying about it and shut down, one of the biggest things that can help the healing process or grieving process in grief is communication. Because so much of our grief gets stuck because we have what I call unresolved communication. Our heart and mind has stuff it wants to say, and all of a sudden the chance is gone to say it. And so what I really encourage people to do is getting that communication out, whether that's writing notes or letters to the person or the situation, or even sometimes I have moms that are in that infertility journey writing letters to their unborn child because it helps that healing and connective process. If you're not a letter writer or a person that writes well or easily and that's uncomfortable, I say speak it out. We all have these great little cell phone things. Take out your voice memos section and act like you're calling them on the phone and record what you're saying. Now, some people are like, why do I have to record it? Why can't I just talk? There's a switch that happens in our brain when we perceive something or someone is listening. And so by recording it, it gives the brain that trick it needs to be like, okay, I need to say it. And as I get it all out, the good, bad, and the ugly, all the stuff. And as you begin to release that communication, there's a part of you that says, finally, you're listening to me. You're experiencing all of this stuff I have to say, and you're giving me a space to heal all of these words and things that are stuck. It's kind of like dirt in a wound. If we don't clean the wound, it's going to cause a pileup of infection over time. And so those unreleased words, unresolved communication can have the same impact on our spirit.
So talking about spirit, I have a weird question for you. If you are to assign a spiritual animal to your mother, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know, man. That's a good one. To my mom personally, or to motherhood in general?
I guess both.
Yeah, to my mom personally, probably a lion. She is definitely like of that lioness. Like, the nurture side of her, you didn't see quite as much. But man, you like mess with her baby, she's gonna hunt you down and take you out. And is willing to do the work of provision and taking care of things from that aspect, right? Like always on the awareness of the fact that the female lioness actually does quite a bit of the hunting for the tribe and the pride and things like that. So, but I think it depends on everybody's personality. There are some people that are much more nurturers, and then there's other people that, what is it, like the panda or some animal that like kicks the cub out and is like, I'm done with you, you're on your own, kind of thing. So everybody's motherhood experience and animal would be a little bit different. And then there's some that are over nurturing and over caring, so it's difficult to say, but for me personally, my mom is definitely a lion. So the thing I had to work through, and her and I have had many conversations about this, is I'm complete opposite. I'm very nurturing and caring. So how do I have those appropriate boundaries now with my daughter, who's 3, to not just let myself over nurture and care for her too much and still maintain that, measure of like authority and having rules and things like that in our household.
So before we wrap this up, Jessica, do you have any last advice that you can give to our viewers on how to handle Mother's Day?
I would say is check in with yourself right now, because we're getting close. So check in with yourself in this holiday, and what are you thinking and feeling and believing about it? And then make a plan ahead of time for what you want to do. Don't just ignore it. Don't check out. Have a support system you're connected to in a way that you can acknowledge the day peacefully. And if you're still really stuck and disrupted post Mother's Day, it might be time to evolve some level of professional to help you navigate through why this injury is impacting you so much.
So last question. I promise this is the last one. What is your ideal customer look like? Who should come to you for coaching and advice?
Yeah. So here's what I say is, if someone has just experienced a major life trauma and they're in so much dysregulation that it's impacting their sleep, it's impacting their functioning, where they're not regulated, they probably need a level of therapeutic support from a doctor or a counselor or something that can monitor them very closely. If they're post the trauma and they're going through life, but they realize they're still not healed, or certain things bring up a lot of intense emotions and they kind of shut down, but they're also ready to do the work, that's the person that is an ideal client for me. Because I say, I'm not here to just help you lick your wounds. I'm here to help you heal, recover, and really tap into who you're meant to be and figure out how to live that best version of you.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Yes.
And if today's discussion resonates with you, remember, you don't have to navigate your journey alone. Book a complimentary consultation with one of our coaches. They are on our website, chronichealthcollective.com, and you can get your personalized support you need. And now that we have Jessica here, we have expanded our menu of options for you. So be sure to sign up for our Chronic Health Collective monthly magazine. chronichealthcollective.com, and we have all our expert coaches share invaluable tips to elevate your life in every way. So join us every Tuesday at 7 p.m. CST for more transformative insights to help you up-level every aspect of your life and health. If you miss an episode, don't worry, you can always catch up at any time at watch.e360tv.com on the Vitality TV network, and also on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Chronic Health Collective. Thank you, Jessica, and we'll
Thank
see
you.
you all next week.
This Mother's Day, celebrate the woman who gave you everything by giving her the glow she deserves. Our Coolness Face Cream and Eye Serum Duo is the perfect self-care treat. And right now, you'll get 15% off with code MDAY15. Plus, while supplies last, we're gifting you a bonus eye cream applicator because mom deserves luxury. But don't wait. This special offer ends on Mother's Day. Shop now at coolness.com and help her feel her beauty.